Okay, hi. I think we're in the right place, and I'm really glad to talk about, not ignoring symptoms, right? And I think that's very important. So I have a list of questions. I'm really happy that you're here. If someone can say hello in the chat, that would be great. Oh, I do see four people. Okay. So, without further ado, this is kind of like this is your wake up, right? It's April 1st, April Fool's Day, but April 1st, what are you doing? Are you on top of your supplements? Are you on top of your exercise? How's your sleep going? What are these lifestyle factors that really matter? And I want to thank everyone who sent in a question. So I'm going to get started with those. First of all, I sleep 8 hours, drink water, eat clean, and I'm still exhausted. What could I be missing? And I think you really tapped on an important point that these are what you mentioned is style pillars, right? So sleeping 8 hours, what you're drinking, right? And that you're eating well. Okay. So there's two other ones. There is movement, and then there's stress. Um, there's stress. Actually, there's three. There's relationships. And so, what are you doing for movement? If you are moving only what you're required to move, or are you really getting your heart pumping? That heart really needs to pump at least once a week. And as we get stronger, right? Now we would have more times where our heart's pumping and beating. So look to the five lifestyle pillars first to make sure you're covering those. Sleeping 8 hours is good, drinking water and eating clean. Okay. What's going on with stress? So, what's happening with stress? Are you having something where you just hold that stress in and that is making you exhausted? Are there times that you can take a moment at the top of every hour? So, this is a tip I say regularly, which is at the top of every hour, take a minute for yourself. So simply put, stand up and do a simple squat, slow squats for a minute. Move your legs, look at the sky, it's blue. How are your feet feeling? So check in with your body. Okay. And there's other things that I can talk about too, that I want to talk about in an episode that I have another podcast called The 3Ds, Designing, Directing, and Doing. And sometimes as your cognition demands increase, you actually will need more fuel, more energy, but that usually comes from reducing stress and letting your brain get all that extra blood sugar in. And so sometimes too, it can relate to low blood sugar episodes. And this kind of goes into eating and some refinement and how to eat. When you're looking at how to eat, how can you find that you can actually fuel yourself? Not necessarily me eating all the time or eating simple carbs, but looking at how much you're eating to support your body's work. And then because those are the foundations. So a lot of it is actually then looking at how you're providing resources to your body. So one of the things, again, I love progressive muscle relaxation. This reduces the stress that gets stored in your body and gets heavy in your head. Thank you for that question. Okay, my spouse is in his mid-20s and he has hypertension. He doesn't want to stay on his blood pressure medication. What could be the root of this and what could help? Okay, this is a serious concern. If your spouse is in their 20s and they're having high blood pressure, it's not the blood pressure that raises progressively with age. So as you age, your blood vessels get a little bit harder. And they do that actually to supply blood to your brain. So there's a reason for it that's physiologic with aging. But when you're in your 20s and you're having high blood pressure, then we know that something's going on. It could be related to some deeper rooted issues. When the blood pressure is high, blood pressure is a vital sign. And when your blood pressure is high, that means your body is tightening. And so it's responding either to the environment. There could be some environmental exposure that's causing aggravation to your spouse. There can be infection. There can be some toxic metals. but usually it's something more root cause when you're that young. Okay, so what I would say at first is make sure they're not using energy drinks all the time. They're not using energy drinks all the time. And first and foremost, what kind of caffeine are they consuming on a daily basis? And then why are they consuming that much caffeine? It is possible they could be consuming a lot of caffeine. How much caffeine they're drinking? So, approximately 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams a day will not lead to a lot of stress related to elevating blood pressure. But if they're getting more than that in for caffeine, that's an issue. How much water are they drinking? Now, a person in their 20s, particularly if it's a male, could be looking close to drinking a gallon and maybe adding some electrolytes into that. Okay, so those are some issues. The other thing is the person smoking, using caffeine. Are they using chew? All these nicotine substances can raise blood pressure. So I know I talked about some deeper rooted issues, but there can be some lifestyle things related to that might create the elevated blood pressure. Okay, my mom's health is fading, and I don't know how to talk to her about that. Okay, great question, because we care so much about our families, and it looks like, so mom being like mid-70s maybe, we really need to start with a plan. We've got to get that plan together to look at the next, really could be 25 years, healthy at 100, right? So in looking at healthy at 100, what are some of the issues that are going on that could potentially mean that person will not stay in their home? Which could mean, are they able to grip, right? What's their hand strength? That's very important. Can they pick things up? Can they walk around the house without getting winded? And most importantly, then one of the number one admission for nursing homes is bladder or bowel incontinence. So if they're looking at bowel or bladder incontinence, that's something the family really can't handle. Okay, so that's a big deal to kind of consider that the person needs those therapeutic supports. And they are out there, definitely. Gynecologic support for men and women, right? We always attribute this to a female issue, but 30% of men also have incontinence issues in their 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. So we need to be thinking ahead of time. The other thing is driving. What are their plans for getting food? What are their plans for having social issues? What are their plans for exercising? And those get written into the daily activities. So those are really honest conversations that we can have with our parents, maybe aunts and uncles, loved ones, and ourselves, right? How do we want the next, benchmark of 100 to be? So I'm 47. I have to think about the next 53 years. I need to get my act together. So that's what I really appreciate that question. Okay, I am gaining weight, feeling anxious, and my digestion is weird. Could perimenopause really be causing all this? No. I will tell you, menopause is getting this bucket dynamic that it's a little aggravating to me. And then perimenopause, Drew Barrymore spoke out. There was a supplement because at 35 she was starting to have perimenopausal symptoms, so she started taking this supplement. I'm like, no, perimenopause is like the months before you're having menopause, not the years or the decade. So menopause for most women is like 52 to 55, and it is a significant transition for people to leave reproductive ages and go into non-reproductive age. But it doesn't mean our entire system shuts down. Okay, so no, if you're having bloating, that's a gastrointestinal issue. It could be an adrenal issue. It can be a vascular issue. If you're having breakouts, the same thing. You could be having some hormonal changes, but you could also be having some other things that are just trying to get out through your liver. Also, the through your skin, there can be a liver congestion issue that comes out through your skin. There's a big liver skin connection, and joint pain, right? So remember, you have kind of a machine going on in your body, right? There's biomechanics. So the machine is going to be stressing out, right? So joints are part of that. And that means we need to build muscle. And that's very,
Once
very
again, ladies and
important.
gentlemen, if your body
So
has indicated
in
zone
building
99,
muscle,
seat 0 or TBD, if you do not have an assigned seat on today's
that
flight,
is
please come see me at this time. If you're on standby as well,
really
please come
important
check
to
in with
thinking about the
me for me
long
to
game.
give you a seat assignment
Um,
once one is open up. Once
because
again, for
what
my standby passengers at this time,
I don't
please
know if you
approach
can
the
hear
podium to
this
check in for me to give
sound,
you a seat as
but
soon as possible.
um, so think about um, when we think about the long game, we really want to make sure that we don't get stuck in this bucket of perimenopause and menopause. There are things happening in our bodies that yes need to be discussed. But if you're gaining weight and you're feeling anxious, again, start with the 5 pillars: diet, movement, sleep, stress, relationships. What's going on with those? Are you getting that movement in? Are you having times where you're reducing inflammation? What are you eating and when are you eating? Have you had a chance to clear out your liver? Right. So I want people to realize that perimenopause to me is just a bucket. And as a gynecologist, I never appreciated when women were just told, "Oh, that's your body. Those are your hormones." Right. You do have hormonal changes, but it's not diving off a cliff at menopause or perimenopause. Right. At 38, there's subtle declines in so they're subtle but important declines, and the ovarian reserve, okay, and they continue to decline, and the ovarian reserve continues to decline until there isn't any more capacity to carry an egg in the womb, right? And that's when the menstrual flow stops. But that doesn't mean it's this all of a sudden this dive. If you're having those changes, you definitely want to look into getting your getting the things. First of all, what's your metabolic capability? That's really important. What's your metabolism? Is this due to vitamin D deficiency? I mean, all those things scream vitamin D deficiency: bloating, breakouts, joint pain. So if that's the case, then vitamin D is a great place to go, but you probably want to know what your vitamin D level is. And then what should optimal vitamin D be? And it should really be 80 to 100. So 80 to 100 is what lifeguards measure for their vitamin D. Make sure you know that, because a lot of times people hear, "Oh, my labs are good," and actually their vitamin D is very low, like around 30. All right, so that is the next question. So thank you for that question very much. Thank you. What do I do when my labs come back fine, but I feel awful? I'm starting to wonder if I'm just imagining it. And that really speaks to my heart, because I hear people say that all the time. I don't feel good, but my labs are fine. Okay, first of all, break that up. If you don't feel good, you don't feel good, and something's wrong. And that is it. You have to find a doctor that believes you. Okay, labs are part of the physical exam element, but history is 75% of the overall assessment, and physical exams/labs are 25%. So you really want to recognize what's the history, what's been increasingly becoming uncomfortable in your symptoms, right? And that matters, and you deserve to be believed. So that's the first thing, because to me, that's such a paradigm shift in medicine. You need to go to a provider
If
who
you need a
believes
tag
you.
for your stroller, car
And
seat, person in a wheelchair, or your walker, please support the podium at this
the
time.
other
As done so, as
thing,
our boarding will slow down our boarding process. Once again, we do anticipate for our
I
overhead
don't know
bin
if
space to
you
be
can hear
completely full on
the
today's flight. If you're
overhead
boarding, if
speaker,
you would
so
like
I'm
to
just pausing
gate
for a
check your
minute.
carry-on to your final destination, please come see me at the podium with your ID. Once again, we are gate checking any paid carry-on for today's flight to your final
So
destination. If you're interested, please come see me at the podium at this time.
the other issue is when my labs come back fine. Okay, first of all, there are a lot of doctors and people who do not know how to read labs. And I call them H and L doctors. So they look for the indication from the lab that says H or L, and then they say, "Oh, those are your problems." But lab results are not based on optimal results. Lab results are based on reference ranges from the population. Whoever gets the labs drawn, that's that's the bell curve. That's the reference range. Um, so then the issue is um, if the issue is when they have when the doctors just say, "Oh, your labs are fine," They're not really looking at health optimization. They're just looking at possibly even just getting you out of the office and saying your labs are fine. And then sometimes they draw such few labs, they don't actually know where the problems are because the labs haven't been drawn. For example, when is the last time you had your vitamin D drawn? When is the last time you had your B12 drawn? Okay. When is the last time you were actually told that your body needs lipids and not to just think because your elevated lipids are there only slightly that you need to be taking a medicine to lower them, when actually you need lipids for repair, for hormones, for your immune system. If you're having any issues that your body's not repairing well, that you're not having enough hormone production, or that your immune system is compromised, and your lipids are slightly high, that makes sense. Your body's trying to retain those lipids, and it's very important. So I understand when people say my labs are fine, but I feel awful. And then I do labs and then I interpret them like, not a lot of labs, but definitely an extensive amount of labs to get a better picture.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I tag your bags
And I've been in many situations where people thank me for telling me that something's wrong because they've been going place to place. So don't believe if someone is telling you that your labs are fine, but you feel awful. They're not drawing the right labs. And I would suggest knowing your cardiometabolic panel, knowing your doing stool test, and then going deeper for concerns of infection, toxic metals. Those are the layers. Okay. In the meantime, start hydrating more, right? Possibly get some good infusions like Myers infusions, immune boosters, vitamin C. Start getting that bioavailability into the IV so that you can start bolstering your body's capacity. Or B12 shots or D shots. Get these things. It's always good to know your lab before you use some high dose micronutrients, but sometimes people just don't have access to that. Have access always to the labs. They can tell you we have a significant micronutrient deficiency in our country. Okay. This is a question from in the chat. Hello. How concerned should I be about acrylamides in fried or baked foods? I think we always have to be concerned about the food that we're receiving and what is in that food. Specifically acrylamides, I'm not exactly sure, so I apologize for that. But when we look at, there's two different things. First of all, when you look at fried foods, you're even just fundamentally looking at a rancid fat. So fried foods really have their own toxicity. Baking foods, and if there's a concern that that's a coating, then for the container, then it is an absorption that will go into the body. And so it is better to look at, what is the material that you're baking or cooking in, and then try to find one that maybe is more stainless steel is very good. Definitely there's concerns about how the different types of coatings that there are in different materials that we cook in. So we have to be careful for that. Some people use iron, some people use copper. We want to get away definitely from things like plastics, which are actually plant-based or synthetic estrogens that are quite toxic and clogging the liver. So thank you for your question very much. Okay, can anxiety and brain fog actually be hormonal? My doctor says everything is normal, but I don't feel like myself anymore. Okay, first of all, how you believe is real, what you believe is real, and yes, anxiety and brain fog can very much be hormonal because our hormones tell our whole body what to do, right? They're communication tools. That's what a hormone is. So if you're having anxiety and brain fog, then you're definitely looking at a concern for hormonal. But first, before doing hormonal considerations, other than your thyroid assessment, because that's very important. I mean, this kind of screams thyroid dysfunction or sluggish thyroid. At first, with sluggish thyroid, get that checked. But then look to vitamin D, B12. What are your micronutrients? Then go to your 5 pillars of your lifestyle health. What are you eating and drinking? How much are you moving in your body and releasing tension? How much stress do you have? What are your relationships like? How are you sleeping? So if you have the TV on all night, for example, The TV is going to have light exposure. It's going to be disruptive. It's going to decrease the quality of your sleep. And then you're possibly going to have more anxiety or brain fog. If it's and so if it's that, if that's the case for you, start really looking at, the metabolics. How's your machine working? Where are deficiencies in your machine? Do you have green? Are you eating leafy green vegetables? It's a nice little way to get some dark greens in.
Oh, Dad wants to know what time.
How much you're eating in the day? Some people are talking about fasting. We talk about that in the podcast for sure. And so anxiety and brain fog can be hormonal, but it can be a lot of other things. When people try to fix hormones before they fix their machine and metabolism, they end up having a lot of problems. So for example, if someone went and they had anxiety and brain fog and they went to pellets, hormonal pellets, you can't take those out, right? You can't take out hormonal injectables. I recommend in my practice that people really work on what are their nutrient levels? How is their body functioning? And then what is their thyroid? What are their adrenals? These are kind of really important master glands that provide a lot of hormonal well-being to our body. They can be assessed metabolically and they can be supported, but you don't necessarily want to go gonadal hormones like testosterone, even estrogen or progesterone, until you assess how your body is actually functioning as a machine or metabolically. What's your wellness like? Okay. How do you treat leaky gut? Well, the most immediate answer is vitamin D. Okay, so leaky gut is usually measured with zonulin. Zonulin is a biomarker. It's obtained from a stool test, and it will tell us leaky gut. The other way I look at leaky gut is immune system compromise. So sometimes we support with things like colostrum or immunoglobulins. Those are very helpful. But first, I want to kind of also assess if there's infection. So charcoal mask is an interesting thing. Is an interesting idea, and it's a little complicated for this conversation. But what I like to say is charcoal pills are very much a binder. They collect things, right? And charcoal mask offered from KPS Essentials is a very mineral balanced, a little bit of charcoal and a lot of support for the body to move the lymphatics. That is very important. Using charcoal mask to support lymphatic movement is very successful in helping the rest of your body work. Okay, so does it specifically treat leaky gut? No. Does it make your body stronger? Yes. And if your body's stronger, it can support the inflammation in the gut. It can provide more resources for healing the gut. Okay, here's the last question. Two more. Why are ozone treatments so effective for so many different situations? So I call ozone treatments root cause treatments. Ozone is a concentrated oxygen. It has been used for a really long time. It's really effective in doing two things. One, killing unhealthy bacteria and pathogens, including mold and parasites. And two, it also works on providing oxygen and perfusion. So not only does it treat the infections or the mold exposure, things of that nature, it also bolsters our immune system by providing oxygen to the area.
Flight 2898, now stop service to Detroit, Michigan. I'm lining up. My pre-boarders are pre-boarders only. You're now to board. This is including anyone in a wheelchair. Anyone that needs extra time on the jet bridge. And not a uniform with ID. Thank you for your service. Family traveling with children 3 and under. At this time, you're now welcome aboard. Once again, for my pre-boarders and pre-boarders only. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're designated alone and not allowed for boarding, can I please step away from the boarding line?
Okay, we'll be figuring that out next time. Okay, so last question, I've been noticing severe jaw pain only when I talk, and sometimes involuntarily. I feel it popping and moving. I was wondering if you have any suggestions. I have also been having other dental
Once again,
issues.
ladies and gentlemen, this time I'm only opening my
And all they told me is because I grind my teeth because I don't feel like this is a problem.
This is including anyone in a wheelchair. Anyone that needs extra time on the jet bridge. At the military, you're in our uniform with ID. Thank you for your service. At this time, you're now welcome aboard.
So TMJ, temporal mandibular joint, for those who don't know, it's right here, and it has a big tight muscle in front of it. and it has your ear behind it, okay? And then it has a lot of sinuses and lymph nodes around it. We open our jaw in a way sometimes that jams our TMJ. Um, it jams our joint because we're kind of dropping our jaw and jamming into the joint. So bite cards can be very helpful, but some deeper issues related to TMJ. One, dairy. Dairy sensitivity has a lot to do with grinding. So avoiding dairy for probably 2 weeks. I would say hedge your bets on that one and take out gluten at the same time. So hedge your bets on gluten and dairy. And then the other thing is use the bite guard for sure. And then make sure that when you're lifting anything, you're using your legs, your glutes, and so that you're actually using your legs and your glutes. A lot of times people will start to clench and get really tight. And they actually start stabilizing their body with their jaw. And so that is a very unhealthy way, of course. We need to start acting with the core muscle activation so you'll use the jaw less. So those are a few different things. But yes, I am very happy to have been able to do this, and your patience is greatly appreciated. I will see you in our next live, and we'll have, of course, our weekly podcast. Thank you so much.